stuffed inside this thing came undone. Stealing cough drops and bandages, it's not meant to be. It's just entropy. It's not meant to be.
What is a world without structure? Without society, without politics, without government, or even without the police? Without the transfer of meaning and the communication of ideas? Without hybridity in culture? Without the exchange of currency? At the very heart of society is people. Humans aren't so restricted to definition. We fight, we love, we work, we age, our bodies change, but most importantly, we ponder.
We ask a lot of our, the police officers and staff that work here work very, very hard, and I would highlight police officers, particularly the work in the emergency sort of response piece, 24/7, working long, unsociable hours, dealing with some really difficult people, some really difficult incidents, some really things that people should really never see. And I've said it before, we're not perfect, but there's got to be a lot of credit given to particularly those, those officers at the front end. The Chief Constable's vision is around what we as a policing service can deliver to society. And he sees that, as we do, of delivering a confident, safe and peaceful society. So through our policing with the community, we as the police service in Northern Ireland will hope to move society forward and deliver on that. And I think we do that, or we're doing that in a really fundamentally, we're moving forward, there's no doubt, as a policing service. And we're delivering that as best we can. Now there may be hiccups along the way, and as I say, we talked about it before, about how accountable we are, because policing within Northern Ireland for years has been a topic for some controversy. And there is a lot of scrutiny on what we as a police service do. We, as I say, the accountability through the policing board, through the ombudsman, through our local PCSPs, it's all there. And we are the most accountable police service in the world, in my view. But there is a reason for that, and that is the background history we have, as I suppose, within Northern Ireland.
People always vote for different reasons, and I don't think you can necessarily put people into a particular social status that will then dictate their voting pattern. It'll depend. I suppose in Northern Ireland, the broader identity politics of whether you're a unionist or a nationalist would still be, in my view, the main issue that will indicate to people how they're going to vote. I think over time that would change, and other issues would be coming into play, but certainly at the last Westminster election a year ago, it was very much identity politics to make sure who was going to have the loudest voice for their particular community. So it didn't matter if you were upper, middle, working class. If you identified as a unionist, you were voting primarily for the DUP. And likewise, if you identified as a nationalist, you were voting for Sinn Féin, and that cut across all social classes. So I don't think in Northern Ireland social class is as big an issue when it comes to voting patterns as it would be in other parts of the United Kingdom, where traditionally your working class would vote for Labour, your middle upper class would vote for Conservative. We don't have that same impact of our politics around social class.
At this moment of enormous national significance, there should be unity here in Westminster, but instead there is division.
Our will to protect the Good Friday Agreement, our will to stay within the European Union, our will to make sure that our relationship with the UK rightly stays the closest possible relationship. You've made this decision, we haven't. You have yet to come with proposals about what Brexit will look like, what the border will look like. We're now in December. We missed a deadline in October, and rhetoric with respect from unionist politicians such as Sammy Wilson and Lord Mulroney is extremely unhelpful, using racist slurs to our Prime Minister.
The DUP were founded by the Reverend Ian Paisley in 1971. They have had links to terrorism in the past. They are anti-abortion, against same-sex marriage, and a number of their senior members are creationists who believe God created the world and everything in it a few thousand years ago.
And as the incidence of crime breeds fear, so our society begins to break down. This is not the Britain we want, and we must fight to change it.
You look at crime figures and they're on the decrease. If you like traditional type of crime, you know, the whole concept of people going into a bank in an armed robbery, very rare anything like that happens now. But on the flip side of that is there's an increase in things like cyber-related crime. So phishing scams, people doing online blackmails, that sort of stuff. So I would suggest that's going to increase over the next 10 years, and we as a police servants need to adapt to that. We need to adapt to the changing face of what criminality looks like.
These commercials have a cost for the individual, the economy and society.
Advertising uses the emotions and sense of self to target our fears, our desires and our vices that are extinguished or met when we purchase a particular brand, such as Apple, Taco Bell, McDonald's. Please don't sue us. We then truly can become elevated in our society, or at the very least be a part of it, be one with it. This type of grouping is what Louis Althusser called interpolation. Now, interpolation is a part of a wider field of theoretical study titled ideology, and this is precisely what we're discussing right now.
Well, the most neutral definition of ideology you could give is that it's a system of ideas that are normally connected to sets of political ideas, and they then become part of policy and aims that that set of people who own those beliefs and who hold those beliefs aim towards. So, for example, people would talk about someone having a Marxist ideology, which would mean that they would be following the tenets of Marx as laid down in Marx's writings, and they would link themselves to other people who held those beliefs and create political parties which then try to further those beliefs. If you want to get really controversial, you can say that you can add ideology to religion, for example. So you could say that Protestantism, Catholicism, the Muslim faith, that these are all ideologies. Now, obviously religions don't like that because they see themselves as faiths, which they see as an entirely different thing. But if you wanted to see religion as a political force, which in many places it is, no less so than here in Ireland, you could argue that those religions then become ideologies which drive policy and which drive political decisions.
As Judith Williamson said in 1978, instead of being identified by what they produce, people are made to identify themselves with what they consume. The content of the world is meant for you. What you see and take meaning from, and what you personally project onto the world through social media. We are all surrounded by this system, the ideological system. And by this, I mean our predetermined self.
Well, obviously, in terms of our society, there is a divided view of what our history is, and given the past that went on. And so, as we go forward into the future, there needs to be recognition that there is a divided past, and that's part of a divided society.
The real danger of ideologies is that they become dogmatic. I mean, you could hold an ideological belief, you could hold a set of ideas, but still be open to other people's ideas. Where it becomes highly dangerous is where those ideas become entrenched, where those holding them become dogmatic about what they want to get done. And the actual term for it is they become essentialist.
Because if you're all of one type or one background, your thinking very much becomes the same way.
All at once and a lightning flash. All you can do is laugh until you just can't no more. I wanna be an engine running wide open, running wide